Mm-hmm.
And then I wound up, we had Bella, got engaged. So 2018 has definitely been a pretty hectic year for me. Nothing like the college years where you wake up at 11, 12, and then just go about your day. But the transition's been pretty smooth. Taking it day by day.
Mm-hmm.
Really just enjoying the family, enjoying the kids, and everything like that.
So you would say that, as opposed to, and I'll say that in retrospect, both of us. I mean, we're not gonna sit here and say we haven't slept till 1, 11, 12, hell 4 in the afternoon, and then now we're just like, what have we been doing the entire time in college? We wasted so much time. How do I get that back?
Exactly. Yeah. How do we get that back? And the real answer is you can't. But
You
it's
really
all about
can't.
what you do forward.
Yeah, definitely moving forward. One of the things that I also wanted to talk about. So, what was the transition from athlete? Because I know you were a student athlete and then you were an RL. When you became an RL, you kind of let that go, and you were making money as a bank teller. And then from bank teller, you kind of you had rose through the ranks, and you ended up becoming a branch manager. And that's a lot to say. You're what, 22, 23 years old?
23. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about that?
About how the transition is.
Yeah. What led into that?
Really just knowing where I wanted to be. I grew up kind of a struggle as a kid, and so I know that that's not the life that I wanted for myself, and especially for my family, moving forward. So really just, having that mindset that I wasn't going to fail and that I was going to continue just pushing myself. That's really what drove me to all of my success so far, and still what I'm going to keep in the back of my mind to drive my success in the future. So really just understanding where I came from and, what my goals are in life and how and what I need to do in order to get there. And I know that I can't, be lazy and wake up really late and then just kind of just get my day started at noon because I don't already miss so many hours. So, waking up early, really being on a grind, having a plan. Having a plan is very important. You can't just wake up every day and then be like, okay, what am I going to do today? I like to plan the night before what I'm going to do. So once I wake up, I already have, the 3 things that are on my to-do list to get done. And then I go knock them out. And then the rest is I get ready for tomorrow or, I do some leisure things. But I always attack, the most important matters at hand first whenever I wake up. Because when you feel the freshest and your body's really ready to go.
No, definitely, absolutely. One of the things that I started doing was I aim to try to get up before 6 o'clock, whether it involves writing a guide. I have two underway. One of them's finished and it's in its editing process, which takes forever because then you realize how bad of a writer you are. But that's why we have editors. And the other one is like halfway through. So I completely understand, especially since, when it's quiet and the world's not up yet, that's what I like to use because when nobody's bothering me for an hour, 2 hours, I have a lot of stuff that I've been able to get done just because I don't have anybody like bothering me or messing with me. It's just straight crunch time, I like to call it. Going from there,
Exactly, yeah.
going from there, you know, I remember very vividly that you became again an athlete, and then how did the process go to bank teller? Because I know it was really weird. It's really weird. Do you go bank teller, then you go supervisor, and then you go and I know you've won numerous awards. What is the process for that?
Yeah, well, the transition was crazy. I was actually just walking around the store one day, and one of my buddies that I was with actually knew some of the employees that were at the bank. And so we just went over there and just started talking to them. And then, one conversation led to another. And they wound up just saying, hey, we're hiring, we could definitely use some help. And, I always kind of wanted a job at a bank, and especially because I was an accounting major at the time. And so I thought that, this would be really good just to kind of get me started in the business field and and kind of get the ball rolling for me. I never thought that I would make a career out of it, but I wound up doing that. The transition it was a really smooth one. At first, the first couple months, it was really learning the company, what it stands for. What I need to do to excel. That way, I can move up in those rankings. And once I figured that out, it was just a system that I needed to get through. I needed to learn X, Y, Z before I could move to the next level. So every day I made it a task of mine to learn something new. That way, whenever I went into these interviews for these new positions, I already know what the position entailed because I was already doing it. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. I remember, and that's the thing is, to be quite frank, banks can be very cutthroat, and because you have so many banks, I mean, just to kind of go back to just even Stephenville, you have Farmers Trust, you have Credit Union, you have Texas Bank, you have First Financial, and I know First Convenience Bank, which is I believe the one, yeah, First Convenience. They already been around the DFW area, but they're just more inside Walmarts and stuff like that, which is good because it's just more accessible and there's a lot of traffic with Walmart. But
Oh yeah.
I believe in your experience, you can say that you know what works and what doesn't, at least what people have done. The value that you learned pretty much going out in the bank system and knowing that there's competition everywhere because every there's a bank, within throwing a rock's distance. You know exactly what works, especially to drive traffic.
Exactly. It's all about being accessible to the customers as easily as possible. That's one thing that customers are really looking for is how easy is it for me to maneuver around the bank, to how can I fit the bank into my daily life. That way I'm not having to go out of my way. Whenever I just got out of work at 5 o'clock and I've been away from my family for 9 hours already. Because customers are wanting something that is going to be on their path on the way home or available for them on the weekends whenever they're at the grocery store or something like that. It's all about convenience in this day and age. So really understanding what your customers and your clients are wanting will really allow you to set yourself apart.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and go back into when you were an accounting major. You transitioned from an accounting major. You didn't finish with an accounting degree in concentration specifically, correct?
No, that's correct. I didn't. I wound up switching to business administration,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what I wound up graduating with.
And then going from there, only because I remember, believe it or not, I was at a Wells Fargo and I was speaking to a branch manager. We had to get some things done and signed because I have my insurance through Wells Fargo. Just
Okay.
kind of off the record there. And so I remember I was asking him, especially when you're in college, you really don't know the answers until you're in the field, and that's one of the things is that you were thrown in early, so you're ahead of the game as everybody else. When in banking, how valuable, and just particularly in banking, because it's one of the hardest jobs to get, but it's also one of the most, um, in a way, it's one of the most not necessarily easy jobs to get, but it's easy to find a job in banking.
hmm
What is the value of a degree and or license, and what would you what would be more, what would value more in a setting like that?
In a banking aspect,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say in a banking aspect, a degree would be more beneficial for you because it's very a degree is very broad. It shows that you have an understanding in many things within that subject, and a license more often than not kind of limits you to one specific trade of that industry. And so,
Gotcha.
especially with banking, you can move up, from personal banker to manager to vice president to president. You can move up, but within banking, to have the degree would really set you apart from other employees trying to get those positions. Getting your bachelor's degree, getting your master's, even a doctorate, especially whenever you're in corporate America jobs, such as banking. I would say a degree would really set you apart rather than just having a license.
Okay. All right. So let's kind of go ahead and talk about. So we're going into the license because now that is the transition. The last time we had seen each other was obviously when we had graduated and a couple of times after that. But I want to know more or less about. So you went from banking, you're a student athlete, you were an RL, and now you are a realtor. And I see you now have a license in
Mm-hmm.
realting. And I don't have much experience in real estate, but let's go ahead and talk about that. How you transit, what made you want to go from real estate, I mean from banking or being, the top dog in your branch to just going to real estate? What was the transition, and what did you do in between to get to this license that you now earned?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. What really sparked the idea is that my fiance was actually a branch manager as well in a different location, and so her and I, our stress levels both were already at the max, and we weren't getting home until late at night. We have two children, and so we our days were already pre-planned for us without us being able to implement anything that we really wanted to do. Our day would start at 6:30. I'd go work out, go to work, and then I wouldn't get home till about 8, 9 o'clock, and then her as well. And then we'd have to cook dinner, bathe the kids, feed the kids, put them to sleep. And then all of a sudden it's already 10:30. We're tired because we have to wake up at 6:30 the next morning. So it really was just hey babe, how was your day? Oh, okay, well let's go ahead and, shower and go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it was, for months until we really were able to make the transition. And the transition, it was a pretty smooth one. There are 6 courses that the Texas Real Estate Commission makes you take prior to taking the state exam.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat through the classes, we studied, and did all of that. That took about 2.5 weeks because we actually staggered the classes like back to back to back. I think 1 week we took 3 classes, and so another week and a half we spaced out the remaining classes and took a couple prep courses for the state exam. And then we wound up taking the state test. Passed that, got the licensing, and now we're going through the transition period, getting everything together with our broker, which we're actually through Coldwell Banker, Apex now.
Okay.
And so that's who's going to be representing us, sponsoring us. So yeah, I mean, we're excited. That's how the transition happened, and I mean, we're definitely excited for this new opportunity that we have.
No, completely understand. So would you say, just very candidly, that although you had a very high up position, which I'm sure paid very well, that because you didn't have the freedom of time that you wish or should have, the freedom of time, especially when you have a family, to be able to go for. Now, I know you're 23 years old, but especially when you have a family, a position like that, is that not something that somebody who has a family, is that a position that is that something that a family oriented man, that job is just not right for them, especially when the other person has something very similar to that, because then you realize what you're missing out?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It may not be every company that's that way, but the company that we were working for made it that way. It was really tough on our family, really just because, we were open 7 days a week. So it's
Yes.
like, and no matter what, you're going to get a call every day because our employees are going to have questions. Like, we're never going to have that true off time because we're open every single day,
Mm-hmm.
Some banks, they're at least closed, Saturday and Sunday, or they close really early on Saturdays. That way, the employees really get about a day and a half, 2 days to where their business is actually really closed. But with us, it's constantly always being ran. So that made it very difficult for us to be able to actually be prominent in our business because we're always doing it, and be very family oriented with the kids and each other. So really, to answer your question, it kind of depends with the company that you're with. If you're with one that is family oriented and the hours make sense, then of course, go for it. The sky's the limit. Get your degree, move up within corporate America. That's phenomenal. But if you're with a company that isn't very family oriented and they're more about their numbers rather than employee retention and employee happiness, then I would definitely think about making a change or seeing what you can do so you can have that family time. That's very important to me. I love my daughter. I love my son. Claudia is the world to me. So it's definitely been a little setback because it took I did leave a high-paying job and to not work for a month so that way I can get my license. And now that I'm licensed, I can start building my real estate business and really get the ball rolling. But I know that I wouldn't want to put money in front of my family. I'd rather make sure my family's good and then us work together in order to make that money happen. And that's what we're doing now. Claudia and I are a team, and that we're going to be paying our bills off of the sales that we make and stuff like that together. So we're getting to work together, not be separate. And
no, absolutely, I completely understand, and that's something that you could speak on the behalf of people who are very family oriented. Money really isn't everything. It's the freedom of time and the opportunity to be able to drop your kids off in the morning and to be able to pick them up from school and be able to go to their games, because that is one of the things that you can't take those back. If you miss a game, well, you can't relive that game. And so that's one of the things, speaking from entrepreneur to entrepreneur, is what I aim to do as quick as I can to be able to just go out there and create something that builds a funnel on itself. So going to this, and this is kind of more where I personally don't have much experience in real estate, but it kind of, when I saw that you were becoming a realtor, what is the difference between a realtor and a broker? What do they do? What are their distinctions? And what do you think about those Facebook spamming real estate stuff, saying that you don't need little money, you need little to no money to flip houses, become a clever investor or sell or be sold or stuff like that. And there's a lot of people like Cody Sperber and Grant Cardone and all these guys who are real estate or wholesaling and stuff like that. What is your take on that? And what is the distinction between what they do and what you do? And is it practical, or is it just something that's just a gimmick?
Okay. Yeah, to answer your first question, the difference between a realtor and a broker, a realtor, which is what Claudia and I are, we're sponsored, so we work under a broker, which our broker is Coldwell Banker Apex. Mm-hmm. So for the Texas Real Estate Commission makes it mandatory that you have to be an agent / realtor. It's pretty much the same thing. At least 4 years before you can become a broker. And the big distinction is, as a realtor, as an agent, with us working under a broker, you're on what they call a split. So, say a house were to sell for $200,000. Mm-hmm. The standard industry commission, it's all negotiable, but the standard is about 3%. So you take 3% of that $200,000 number, and then that's what the broker, so in our situation, that's what Coldwell Banker will get, is a 3% of the sales price. Well, as us being the agent realtor that made that transaction happen and found that customer, we then split that 3% of the sales price on a, I can't disclose what our split is, but mm-hmm. we then split that between us and the broker.
Okay.
So for an example, say if it was like a 50-50 split, then it would be 3% of the sales price So say, just for math purposes, say that's 10,000. Then if you and your broker were on a 50-50 split, then the broker would get 5,000, you would get 5,000. So
Gotcha.
that's how a realtor gets paid, an agent gets paid. A broker, so in 4 years, and I have a certain number of hours, a certain number of volume performed, then I can apply and take the test to become a broker. So that is, I don't have to be sponsored under anybody. I'll be my own entity, and then I get 100% of the 3% of the sales price, or
So
whatever is negotiated.
in essence, one is pretty much one has the money, the other one finds the person to get that money, and then once you become a broker, you're pretty much, well, I can either be my own realtor and my own broker, so there's no middleman.
Exactly. Yeah, it gets rid of the middleman.
Okay.
And what's good though is about a broker. So say we fast forward 4 years and I become a broker. What I can do is then I can sponsor an agent. So say if you were to go get your real estate license
Mm-hmm.
in 4 years, you could then work for me, and then I would negotiate with you a split percentage off of what you go out and sell. So you're going to go run your own business, blah 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 blah. But you're gonna work under the title of, say, for example, it was Cameron Gomez, real estate or something like that. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now stuff like that makes more sense. So, because you have the experience in real estate, and I see it all the time. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on Twitter. It's pretty much hard to avoid. What is your take on these wholesaling people who, they don't have a license, they wholesale, they flip houses, and I remember I went to a seminar, not necessarily a seminar, but I guess you could say a sales pitch. It's called the REI Success Academy. These guys pretty much said, you pay so much money for this class, you get $500,000 in money to play with, and you get certified with this company, but on their own certification level, and we teach you everything, the systems and all that stuff. Like, what is your take on these uh, Facebook posts?
Yeah. I mean, and you're totally right. There's so many out there, and a lot of them do have some good info. Whenever you get to minute 60, out of the whole thing, right at the end, they'll give you a little good spiel about how the market's doing or something like that.
Yeah.
I've listened to a few of them, especially some by Grant Cardone. I feel like what he's doing is phenomenal. As a wholesaler, house flippers and stuff like that, they're really, tapping the market pretty good right now, taking advantage of the buyer's market, which is meaning that there's so many more buyers than there are sellers. The market is starting to plateau a little bit and come back to like a pretty equal equilibrium. But as far as the videos, I mean, there's so many out there. There are some with some good intel on it. But my advice is, if you really want to get into real estate, or you really want to learn more about it, I would say get advice from an already established agent that you know and trust, or contact a broker, or even take some classes. I mean, the classes are about $150 to $200. They're 2 days, and you just get so much information. You can go through Champions, you can go through, online. There's some online courses. If you can't get to the campus, if you're just homebound, if you can't get out.
Mm-hmm.
I would really advise anybody that's looking to get into the industry or just has questions to look on the Texas Real Estate Commission website. There's so much information on there. Or really contact a broker that you trust, or go to the classes yourself and get the information from licensed instructors. Because all the instructors are licensed by the Texas Real Estate Commission. So they've actually handpicked them and said, hey, you're certified to teach this. You're certified to teach this. So they're experts in what they do, rather than just listening to all these videos and really just getting the runaround about how the industry works.
Yeah, it's much best advisable to actually know the process of why real estate agents and brokers are existing in the first place. What is the purpose of it? Just kind of to avoid things like that housing market crash that happened in 2008, but also to completely understand, you know, although they may paint a pretty picture, you may realize like it's not like that once you actually get into, once you know, like once, like some people will try to just, this is a pretty picture, I'm not going to tell you what's behind the curtain, but just know this may or may not guarantee you profit, so it's best advisable just to brush up on what, like how the logistics of real estate works.
Exactly. Yeah.
So going from there, if there's one thing that you could tell yourself when you were 18 with all the ups and downs that you've had, because I know you used to own a business,
hmm
what would you say to yourself now? Because I believe you no longer have the hookah business, correct?
No, that's correct. I wound up. I mean, the license is still active and stuff with everything that we were doing, but I put it into like where it's not actually being used right now. Something that I would tell myself, my 18-year-old self, would definitely be more open-minded. Especially to others' ideas. Whenever I first started Smoke and Joy, I had a vision for it myself. I had a business partner as well, and he would give his input, and some that I would take, but the majority, like I wanted it Cameron's way, and that was that. And so I feel like I burned bridges with some people that I may not would have burned that bridge if I would have actually just listened to them and been more open-minded to their suggestions, rather than just take thoughts and actions into my own hands. So that's definitely something that I would tell myself, if I could go back and, to 18, 19 and just reiterate to myself is, be open-minded, listen to others' thoughts, because you never know. You may be so good at one subject on or within the business, but there's still so many other aspects to it that others can give you input on. And if you're only thinking about, what your ideas are and this and that, you could be missing out on potential greatness or potential growth or, whatever it may be.
Absolutely, and I think that's also something very important is, and this is kind of where if we think big picture, and this is where I'm big picture. Unfortunately, I do pay attention to details, but then I look over details because I go 100 miles per hour to big picture, and so sometimes I have to take a step back to kind of here it is. So take this for example, the CEO is the growth, expansion, and like big picture. CEO is big picture. COO is the operation for each department, and then CFO is the finance for the business itself. You're not going to have the CEO know the purpose of finance or the logistics on how that job is done because they're not made to do that. Like that is why they have their own entity, they have their own department, they have their own title, just because they are good at what they do, and it's to make sure you stay in your own lane because that's the reason why they're there. They're there to give you advice on how the money can become more money, as opposed to you just need to, market more or do this or do that. That is, I completely understand where you're coming from.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't ever want to step on somebody else's toes. They got to where they're at in life because of, their self wanting to get there and, their ability to perform and, the results that they've showed. So why step on somebody else's toes and impede on what their level of expertise is whenever your position has you doing something completely separate?
Absolutely. So coming from, kind of wrapping this whole thing up, because, we both come a long way uh, within the past year from graduating. And I'm not going to lie, it's not an easy journey. Sometimes you realize, wow, I thought this was a job I wanted. And turns out it's like, I can't do this anymore, which is okay. Now that what I guess you could say frame is now that you're your own entrepreneur right now, like you've always been, with your previous business and all that stuff. what is the end game? What is big picture here for you yourself? Is there a funnel you're trying to develop, a system, automation, or anything like that?
What's my end game? That's crazy. I try to ask myself that every single day. Where exactly, do I want this to go? What exactly are my plans? And as of right now, I mean, since I'm so new, honestly, I don't know yet. I never thought, I never thought that I'd leave the bank. And so for me to actually take that step and take that leap of faith, just goes to show that, if I'm able to do that, I'm able to do anything. And so my mindset right now is to really blow up Claudia and I's real estate business, really to expand out and help so many people buy homes. Because that is, 98% of America's biggest purchase that they'll ever make in their life is buying a home. And for Claudia and I to really be able to be there and be that advocate for our clients throughout the whole process is really going to allow us to get to where we want to be, and allow us to grow into the positions, grow into the agents that we are, that we become. So it's all new for me, this whole new adventure, but I'm really excited about where it's going. But as far as the end plan, I definitely I can't say an end plan because I'm still in the beginning process. I'm still in the just born stages of being a realtor. So seeing where this industry is going to take my family and I, there's no limit to it.
No, that's completely understandable. And to be quite frank here, just with everybody else, with the other interviews that I've had, everybody else started somewhere. They didn't think they would get to where they wanted until they actually just kind of got their feet wet, and then they said, you know what, I'm going scuba diving. Let's go for it. I remember very vividly, I went to a conference and, I was just going kind of for fun. I never really thought I would, start becoming, start doing YouTube videos. I knew very little about how things work. I didn't know much about, creating funnels or anything like that. Or it was just more in college. It was theory behind another. And me personally, I'm not saying that theories are bad. I'm just saying where's the practicality in that theory? I mean, sometimes you have to put in outside variables into that. And I believe if there's one thing that college taught me was that I know how to learn. So, picking up on how to use Photoshop stuff and InDesign stuff and Canva graphic design and doing links and email marketing and social media analytics and learning search engine optimization to get my website on the top ranking page of Google. I mean, you type in Gray House Consulting, you're going to find my webpage #1 there. It took me a while. So it was just trial and error. And even with you, not to say that, your business didn't necessarily fail, but you can say that there are some mistakes there that could have been avoided, but now it's just a learning curve to make sure you don't make them again.
Exactly.
And going from there, learning how to, design a website and learning what works and what doesn't. It's better to speak more, or how I say, you say less, but it means more. And so not try to throw an entire essay at somebody and they're like, what the heck is this? You build in questions that could lead to answers. And it's one of those things that, in persuasive writing, we didn't really know that because it's kind of like for example, an email at max should be about 325 words at best. And you have to have calls to action, and there's psychological tactics to get those calls to action. But, marketing really doesn't teach that because it's talking about this is a definition of advertising, or this is the definition of marketing, or this is the definition of selling. So they talk about it, but they never really say how to do it.
Exactly. That's the problem with our school system. Like they're so standardized around a certain test or helping you pass the next grade or whatever it is. They're not they're teaching you definitions and they're teaching you material, but they're not teaching you how to do it and how to grow something and how to actually look at it as an owner position. It's just looking at it as
A
a
worker
quick.
position.
Exactly, yeah. Just looking at it as a fill in the blank option, like, okay, if this happens, I have A, B, C, or D. What do I choose to do? But that's not how life works. You don't have A, B, C, or D options
You have the
or
entire
true and false
alphabet.
A or B. Yeah, you have, you have real life. You have, if you're a business owner, you have employees and you have people that, need your business to succeed. That way that they can feed their own children and pay their own bills. So it's the school systems and what's going on is a completely different subject, and that's a whole different interview. But it's really about if somebody's wanting to go to school or if somebody's on the field or on the fence about going to school because they're not sure what they want to do, then okay, I mean get some advice, get some information about broad topics. But if you really know exactly what you want to do, get a license. Do the license route because that's going to open up so many doors. It's so much less time getting a license than it is getting a degree. And if you know exactly, you want to be a welder or you want to be in construction or whatever it may be, a real estate agent, get that license because that's going to allow you. It's going to limit you to that specific trade. But if you know 100% that's what you want to do, don't waste your time going to get a degree because it's not going to do anything for you. Get the licenses
Or the
get
certification,
the experience in the field that you're doing it because that's what's really going to set you apart and what's really going to build your clientele.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I advise, especially kids who are 18, 19 years old. Don't invest yourself in student debt if you don't have to. Go to a community college, go to a trade school. If you have to commute from home and live with grandma or mom or whatever, or dad, doesn't matter. But make sure you have something that, okay, I have this certification. Now I can work under somebody a couple of years. Don't stop going to school. I believe some of the most important classes is like graphic design, digital media, persuasive writing or technical writing, accounting, finance, knowing simple principles of like that. Even if you don't want to do that, there's so many resources online like Skillshare and edX.com where you don't really need to, like, you could get honestly, I'll even post it down in the link in the description. edX, in my opinion, is one of the most informational, most productive courses that I've ever seen. I mean, these courses are taught by Harvard, MIT, and Vancouver, and these really top-end schools. And you pay $100 and you get a certification that you can put on your LinkedIn, and it's going to mean so much more because it's going to say from Harvard, MIT, or Vancouver certification. Which, if you have 10 certifications and you know how to specifically do something, it's going to be better than a degree that is so broad and you may or may not know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly right.
Yeah, man. And so just to kind of top it off, I really wish you on your endeavor to real estate, and I hope everything goes well for you. And
Oh no, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
no, absolutely. Just one of the things, if you want to just kind of give me all the information that you have, if you have a website, Instagram, Facebook, go ahead and send me all that stuff. I'll go ahead and post it down in the link in the description. And thank you very much for allowing me to interview you and see your transition and the minor struggles. And because one of the things is success isn't built overnight, and there's struggle that comes along with it. But I could definitely tell you that from when you graduated, from when I first met you, you've come a long way, and that's a lot of respect that I give towards you, just because you can tell that most people, and to be quite frank, they don't move up because they're just set on one thing. They don't change. And like you say, I realized what my mistake was. I'm not going to make it again. And that is just a lot of things, a lot of stubborn entrepreneurs or fallen entrepreneurs. Anybody could say entrepreneur, but to say successful entrepreneur, that's something completely different, man. And I can tell, and thank you very much for allowing me to interview, but I really wish you the best luck. I think there's a lot of good things going on.
Yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate you having me. I'll shoot you all of the bios and the links and stuff like that. That way you can embed it in. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward. Maybe in 3-6 months, we can have a part two, and I can let you know more about how the industry's going, how some success stories that Claudia and I have had, and then maybe the next time we can bring her in on it. That way it can be both of us together.
Absolutely, man. I am not against that. And that's perfectly fine. And I wish you the best of luck. And you know where to find me if you have any questions, comments, concerns. And if I ever need to buy a house, which I'm not ready for, I know exactly
No,
who
I
I
got you. I got
I
you.
know exactly who I'm going to.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. My family appreciates that. And keep in contact, man. Love to hear from you.
Likewise. Bye bye.
Bye.